Hello and welcome to Inside the World of Box Lacrosse. My name is Trevor Butz and I am your host here today, and I'm doing it all here today. As you could tell by the awkward start to the show, Greg is not here with us today. He is traveling as he's headed down to attend the services of one Carlin Woody Seneca. As you see our lovely tribute graphic on the screen, Mr. Seneca was a wonderful man whose impact on the world of box lacrosse spread far and wide, as he really, left a legacy and made an impact on the game. Somebody that I know will be missed. He left a legacy here with Blue Squatch for sure. I know Greg has talked about it before. He is someone that really helped to get Blue Squatch on their feet with his support over the years. Somebody that was really big for Greg in helping to start this channel. So Greg, on the road today, heading down to attend his services, as we still are here with ITWOBL for today. Still should be a good show, as we got a lot of important things to talk about inside the world of box lacrosse, particularly in the Can-Am Lacrosse League, as things are starting to heat up here as we get down into the final stretch run here in the Can-Am Lacrosse League, in particular, as the regular season is officially done and dusted. It's time for the playoffs, and anybody who knows anything about the Can-Am Lacrosse League knows that there's two seasons really in this league. You have the regular season and the postseason, and let me tell you, the postseason means all of it. It means that much more than the regular season, as the playoffs, undoubtedly the biggest time and most entertaining time to watch Can-Am lacrosse, as it should be a good one. We'll show you here real quick how the regular season standings finished off in the Can-Am Lacrosse League, as you'll get to see Tonawanda finished on top in the league this year with a 12-4 record, 24 points for them on the season, as I believe that'll at the very least tie their all-time wins total. I want to say they were around 12 for their all-time total. So as Google Meet checks to make sure I'm still here, we will continue on. Allegheny finished at 11-5. They were very impressive all season long, only losing the 3 games on the floor, as they were, forced to take 2 losses for stuff that went off the floor, being their ineligible player issues. So that was 2 losses added to their total, and that ended up hurting and costing the Arrows in the long run, as they would have finished at 13-3 and been the number 1 seed had they not had those problems. But that's not the case, and just something they got to deal with now, as they're the number 2 seed and they got to take on the Newtown Golden Eagles. But based on what happened in the last game of the regular season, it might be all right for Allegheny. They took care of Newtown. I believe the final was 19-8 in that game, as the Golden Eagles, though, finish with an 8-8 record, 16 points for them on the regular season. A much better regular season for Newtown than maybe it would have been anticipated at the start. A bit of a slower start, kind of win one, lose one for the Golden Eagles, and the record ultimately does kind of show that's how their season goes, being that they finished 500. They won as many as they lost, but Newtown still a definite threat this year. They loaded up and won quite a bit down the stretch into their last few games. I know I did mention they dropped their last game against Allegheny, but they were able to knock off the Arrows on the road at the Allegheny Community Center. And that's a big thing for Newtown, because if they want to advance to the Can-Am Championship, they're going to have to beat Allegheny on the road. Newtown trying to advance to the finals for the first time since 2022 and win the championship for the first time since 2011. It's going to take a lot, I think, for the Golden Eagles to accomplish that, but anything is possible for sure here in the Can-Am Lacrosse League, and I think they're at 8-8, and there's only 3 wins separating them and Allegheny in the standings, and 4 between them and Tonawanda. So the gap might not be as large as we might think, but Newtown 8-8. Grand River rounds out the 4 playoff teams this year. They finish at 6-10. And for the Warriors, a team that I believe it was 0-5 they started out on the year. You might think, man, when you're starting out 0-5, this is going to be a really rough year. There might have been some people up in Six Nations and in Brantford, Ontario, thinking that they were going to have a year like Tuscarora did last year, where they only don't win any games or only win 1 or 2 games. But that wasn't the case for the Warriors. Once they got going and started to get some home games up at the Civic Center, they were able to find a groove and get rolling and start to capture some victories, and they end up finishing the year at 6-10 with 12 points, and really, in my opinion, not a bad year for the Grand River Warriors at all. Like I said, 6-10. So it's their sophomore campaign as a team in this league. It's not overnight. It's gonna take time to develop these teams into championship contenders. Rome wasn't built in a day, they always say, and neither were the Grand River Warriors. But a very solid regular season, 6-10. I'm sure a lot of folks up in Six Nations will want a few more wins, but hey, we still got the playoffs, and you never know. Upsets can happen in this league all the time. As Onondaga, I will touch on them here for a moment. They finish their regular season at 3-13. Did have to forfeit the last few games of the regular season, which was unfortunate. We always want to see these games get played, as lacrosse so entertaining, and I'm a big believer that you just never know in a lot of these games who's going to win. As Onondaga was able to get some this year. They were the beneficiary of an Allegheny forfeit that got them one of their 3 wins on the year, but they ultimately will finish at 3-13. Not a year to remember for the Red Hawks by any means, as it was definitely one to forget. As I was starting to say there, just not a great year for them. Short numbers, a lot of off the floor issues going on, but hopefully they can get everything all sorted out and be coming back stronger next year. That is a team with a lot of history, a proud Red Hawks organization, and hopefully they'll be able to come back stronger next year and be back playing some competitive lacrosse. Because let me tell you, when the Red Hawks are a good team, it's good for the Can-Am. It's like when Buffalo and Toronto and all these teams are good in the NLL. It's the same kind of deal. Onondaga, right up there with them, a team with, as I mentioned, a ton of history, the proud franchise that is the Onondaga Red Hawks. They play with so much pride, and there's a ton of passion up there for that team, and hopefully they're back playing some competitive lacrosse next year, as they're done for the remainder of the postseason. It'll be the top 4 here as we get ready for the playoffs. Tonawanda, the number 1 seed. Allegheny, the number 2 seed. Newtown will be the number 3 seeded team. And Grand River, the 4th seeded team in the postseason. As I just have to pause for a nice water break. Goalies get water breaks in the games. We got to get water breaks up here too. As I take a look at the chat here, Utica Yeti in the chat. How you doing? As we continue to look, Blue Squatch as well. Greg's able to chime in a little bit on the road. Don't crash the car, Greg. Make sure you keep it between the white lines. As, like I said, I know he's on the road, constantly on the move. That guy, he is always working hard. And right now, as I mentioned, going out for Woody's services. But, I mean, the distances he would travel initially when he first met me for games was unprecedented. I mean, coming all the way out to Western New York from Albany for these games is just wild. But I'll tell you what, I am so glad he did, because if he didn't, I wouldn't have met him, and I wouldn't be here talking to all you fine folks here today. As now we will give you a full screen look at the Can-Am playoff bracket, as get a bit of a visual there, as that will tell you just about everything you need to know as far as the playoffs are concerned for the Can-Am Lacrosse League this season, as you get a look at the semifinal series, as I've mentioned before, the number 1 seeded Tonawanda Braves will take on the number 4 seeded Grand River Warriors, and then the number 2 seeded Allegheny Arrows will take on the number 3 seeded Newtown Golden Eagles in a semifinal series. Each of them will be best of 5 series, so be sure to keep your eye out for dates and whatnot. We'll try and let you know as soon as we know here at Blue Squatch, but be on the lookout for that. The weekend of the 18th, I know playoffs are slated to start, as I would imagine they would start at the higher seed. So Tonawanda and Allegheny would open up the playoffs with home games in their best of 5 series, and then our championship round a best of 7 in what will be a doozy between the winner of Tonawanda, Grand River, and Allegheny and Newtown. And man, oh man, it really could go any way here in the playoffs this season. So unpredictable, but that's not going to stop us from trying to make some predictions, as I'll go through for a moment what I was able to predict, as you get a look at my ugly mug once again. How about we get the playoff bracket back up there? That's a little bit better, I think, as you get a nice look at that graphic. Looking at the left side of that bracket, Tonawanda and Grand River, I think that's going to be an entertaining series. I think both series really could go either way, but I'm going to have to make a prediction that I think the Tonawanda Braves will advance to back-to-back Can-Am Championship final series for the first time in their history. This time, they're going to do it as the number 1 seed. I think they will take down the Grand River Warriors, and I'm going to say Tonawanda in 4 games. Maybe we see 5 in this series. You never know. I think that these two teams are more closely matched than one might realize, as I know Tonawanda is doubling them in win total on the year. Grand River plays tough, and they play the Braves tough, as they did get 1 win over Tonawanda earlier this season, back in a game up at the Brantford Civic Center, as Tonawanda does have some issues with heading up to Grand River. There are some troubles at the border and whatnot, so that can help Grand River and give them that slight edge in those home games, just like Tonawanda has all the home field advantage in games at Logan Field. That can help out the Warriors in these big playoff games, against Tonawanda. And I think they might be able to steal 1, but maybe they can take 2. It'll be tough, but especially with what Tonawanda did in their final regular season game, going up and winning. I believe the final was 17-13. Thank you, Stamper, for covering that one. But especially with that kind of result, I think I got to back the Braves here in my prediction of that series. Looking at what Greg told me that he thought his prediction was, he also said Tonawanda in 4 games. So I think that is the Blue Squatch consensus right now, is that Tonawanda will advance in 4 in that first round series against Grand River. Allegheny and Newtown on the other side of the bracket. The 2-3 matchup in one matchup that I think will be very entertaining. The Arrows taking on the Golden Eagles. Man, I'm not so sure what to predict in this one. I think really that one could go either way. I think Allegheny's a bit of a deeper team than Newtown, but the Golden Eagles kind of are reminding me a bit of Allegheny in in that flair that they were playing with, in that sense. Last year when they had picked up Fraser and Kluche, Newtown's kind of got that swagger about them this year a little bit, with the new additions of Clay Scanlon, my man Clay Wizard, Tehoka Nanakoke, and of course Ron John. They definitely are playing with a bit more swagger and a bit more flash this year. The Golden Eagles historically a lot about cohesion and chemistry and development of talent, which they are still about. They have developed a ton of it, but when you can supplement that developmental talent with guys from the outside like a Tehoka Nanticoke, it's going to really benefit your team, as Ron John and Scanlon as well. Those guys, I believe, from down there in that area. I know Scanlon did play some more Chiefs when he was younger, and I believe Ron John from that area as well. So those guys, part of that local talent that they've developed. And I mean, there's not many places that have developed much better talent in the Can-Am over the years than Newtown. I mean, there's a reason why that franchise has won 11 Can-Am championships. They develop talent, and like I said, they got that swagger, I feel like, a bit this year. Allegheny, though, such a deep team, and that Arrows team is quickly becoming a veteran-laden, experienced Allegheny Arrows team. As, just looking at their roster a bit, and the guys they have now. I mean, Darius Anderson, he played in the Prezi last year. You got Ben Austin. He's been on some good teams with Tuscarora. I believe he was on their Prezi team as well. Chris Cloutier, of course, looking at his experience. And then, obviously, guys like Chase Fraser, Christian Watts, guys that are bringing that NLL experience as well. And, just looking through the lineup, Zach Miller, of course. How can we not mention him when talking NLL experience? Lane Smith had a great Prezi in his time last year. 13 goals for Smith at the President's Cup. So he's a big player. He was at one point very recently the league's leading goal scorer. And then, I mean, guys like Chris Atwood in the lineup. He's a veteran now. He's spent some time in the Arena League with the Oswegan Bears, and during his Prezi run, 11 goals and 20 points for him. So this is a team full of guys that can produce, and they produced in the biggest games, at the President's Cup. That's why I bring it up. Those are, some of the biggest, most tense, and closely matched games. As, anybody who remembers watching Allegheny last year, they kind of rolled through the Can-Am during the regular season, but when it got to be President's Cup time, those games were a lot closer and a lot tougher, and they still were able to have a great showing, though, picking up that bronze medal. Something they did the Can-Am very proud in that run. As just continuing to look at the lineup, of course, a couple more guys I want to make sure I mention here as well. Frank Brown, a former Bandit, somebody who's got that NLL experience as well as bounced around the league a bit, spent some time with, here we'll give you the list, Georgia, the old Rochester Nighthawks, the Philadelphia Wings, of course, your Buffalo Bandits, and the new Rochester Nighthawks as well in the history for Frank Brown. And then somebody who's wearing an A this year, Xavier Taylor, loved his game. I've raved about him all year long. I'm sure Greg will tell you Trevor loves talking about Xavier Taylor and what he brings to that Arrows team. And of course Josh Becker as well. He's somebody that has that NLL experience. These two teams so evenly matched. I'll take a look here at my latest Newtown roster as well, just to go through some of their guys. I mean, I like the look of Ryan John in the last game when I saw him. Dylan Snow, I think, is a good player as well. Of course, we've mentioned the big three. Their three new additions plenty of times. Jaden Jimerson, I think, is a player that has a lot of potential on that Newtown team, and I love watching Kane Kettle play as well. He rocks an A for Newtown. He's a guy I feel like could he's the epitome of a transition player, in my opinion, in that I think he can play offense just as good as he can play defense. He is so good. He can get up the floor. I really love watching him play. So solid back there, but somebody who's got, maybe a deceptively good shot. Kane Kettle spent some time with the Oswegan Bears in the Arena Lacrosse League. Looking throughout the roster here, of course, Darren Mohawk, somebody who's very solid on that team as well. Heron Snow, I love watching Heron Snow play as well. He's such a good player. Jonah Mohawk, he can really play. Lyndon Stevens, of course, the Golden Eagle captain. And then, how can we not mention the goalies? Craig Seneca, of course, he's the X factor in my opinion, for Newtown this year, as I'll get you another look at the playoff bracket once again, show you what we are talking about. Newtown and Allegheny, my little internal debate going on here between, who do I pick between these two teams? Just talking about Newtown's Craig Seneca really is the X factor for the Golden Eagles, in my opinion, and Allegheny, their goaltending combo of Goa Abrams and Chase Martin really could make all the difference. If one struggles, oh yeah, just bring in another all-star goaltender in Chase Martin off the bench. Or if Chase has a rough game, oh yeah, how about bringing out, Team USA legend Goa Abrams, out there as well. Goa, I think, has gotten the lion's share of the starts this year, so I imagine he would be the number one for Allegheny. But, I mean, Goa and Craig Seneca as a goalie matchup, I mean, we're splitting hairs trying to find differences between the two of them. They are both oh so talented. But if I have to make a decision, which I know I do eventually here, I will say Allegheny's going to advance. It's so tough looking at those two teams to pick one over the other, but I think I'm going to have to say Allegheny will advance to the championship series. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, I think we're getting a rematch of our series last year between the Tonawanda Braves and the Allegheny Arrows. Only this time, the seeds will be flipped. Tonawanda will be the number 1 seed. Allegheny will be the number 2 seed in the playoffs. Tonawanda will have the home field advantage this time around, and that could make all the difference in a championship best-of-7 series. As I stop for another water break here on ITWOBL. Thank you all so very much for joining, and we'd also like to make sure we take this time to thank CB's Cannabis Club for all of their support. Be sure to check them out, and if you are 21 and over, be sure to check out everything that they offer as well down in the Salamanca Allegheny area. Be sure to check them out. All their great offerings that they have available down there. As I'll pull up the playoff bracket one more time. I have Tonawanda and Allegheny here in the championship series, as I think it will be that rematch between the Braves and the Arrows, as not that often, not always do we get these championship rematches here in the Can-Am. I think we're going to get one this year, as parity is really starting to become a big thing in this league. Teams are, like, as I've said, anybody can beat anybody, and we are starting to see those different finals matchups typically from year to year. But I think we're going to get a rematch here between Tonawanda and Allegheny, and then after that, I mean, who knows between those two teams. I think Tonawanda has had the hot hand, so to speak, lately. So if I had to pick right now between those two, I think I might have to say Tonawanda, but oh man, it might be in 7 games. I would not at all be surprised if that one goes the distance. That could quickly turn into an absolute war between those two teams. As I'll pull up the standings here one more time. Tonawanda 12 and 4. Is that enough for the Braves? 12 regular season wins was enough to get them the number 1 seed. Will it be enough to help them get to the Can-Am Championship Series? Got to pick up quite a few more wins to call yourselves champions. 7 in particular. Got to win 3 in the first round, then 4 in the finals if you want to place that crown atop your head and call yourselves champions. Tonawanda trying to do it for the first time in their 26-year history in the Can-Am Lacrosse League. I know Tonawanda Braves Lacrosse goes back long past 26 years, but 26 years playing in just this Can-Am Lacrosse League, and the Braves only made their first finals appearance last year, and this year are poised to make their second in a row. And in talking to some folks down in Tonawanda, there is a buzz around this Braves team this year, and a lot of hype and a lot of hope that they can bring that elusive Can-Am championship back to Tonawanda. having been able to be down there for as many games as I have now and get to connect with the people down there, I really think it would mean the world to them to get that championship and to call themselves champions of the Can-Am Lacrosse League, something that had never been the case in their history, as I mentioned. Only the first time making the finals last year. They're looking to make at least 2 in a row. I think, if they can win that, it would really do a lot for them and would be a big boost for Tonawanda for sure. And everybody would love that, as Allegheny got to experience that last year for the first time in their history. They, kind of a similar story to Tonawanda in that sense. We're a drought-laden team that had never won, and Allegheny, before a few seasons ago, had never even made the finals, and last year was their second in a row. They got over that hump, and they had to lose against Tuscarora to help them learn how to win against Tonawanda. Maybe that's the same thing for the Braves here, but like I said, Allegheny had that similar experience last year, winning last year because of them having to fall in their series against Tuscarora a few seasons ago. So maybe that all rings true for Tonawanda as well. Who knows, as we have a lot to unpack here. And, of course, as I've talked about Newtown, talking about ending droughts, the Golden Eagles, the winningest team in Can-Am's history, but they're on a bit of a Can-Am championship drought. Just ask anyone down there. They'll tell you the Golden Eagles need to bring home some hardware soon, because those great fans down in Newtown, I think they're starting to get a little restless. They need to be going like this a bit more often, as they're a fan base that is got accustomed to it throughout their early history with dynasties galore in the Can-Am Lacrosse League. But it's been a while for the Golden Eagles. Can they capture a title? And how about Grand River bringing potentially the upset of all upsets against Tonawanda? That's what they're hoping to do. They're looking to maybe go on a Tuscarora Tomahawks 2023 run, upset the number 1 seeded Braves, and then go to the finals, maybe beat Allegheny as well. What a story that would be for Grand River if they're able to accomplish that. And they kind of do remind me a bit of the 23 Tomahawks, a team that didn't quite have all the pieces together at the start, loaded up about midway through the year, and then had a good final stretch to end the regular season hot. You are the lowest seed in the playoffs, but they could go on a run here, and oh man, what excitement there would be up in Six Nations and up in Brantford, Ontario as well, if the Grand River Warriors can upset the Tonawanda Braves and go on a run. Man, it's also exciting here as we, wind down the regular season, or wrap up the regular season, I should say. It's all said and done now. Those are the final standings and final numbers. If we can get some final goal scoring and points leaders, I will look to try and make some graphics and get those out to you guys as well for your viewing pleasure. But till we have the numbers, it won't be out there yet, but once I get them, I'll get them made for you. As I take a look at the chat, Utica Yeti chiming in a bit here as we continue on. 13 of you all watching. Thank you so very much for taking some time here on a Wednesday morning to check out ITWOBL, as I got to pause for one more water break. Refreshing, as we continue on just talking about the inside the world of box lacrosse, as we should talk a little bit about the First Nations Junior B Lacrosse League before we sign off, as it has already been a solid half hour here as we continue on. Greg not with us today. I still say we. I should say I. Greg with us in spirit, but he is down traveling today, so I am running everything here today, so I am a little scrambled, but I think everything's going okay so far, by and large, as we are here on Inside the World of Box Lacrosse. Now I'm going to start talking a little bit about the juniors, as they are starting to wrap up their season as well. And I mean, juniors, I will say, haven't been as competitive as the seniors this year. The Seneca War Chiefs have far and away been the best team in the league. Not really a doubt or debate about that. I have them currently at 11-0. Has been some trouble finding the records for some of the teams so far throughout the year, as there have been some games not always getting posted and whatnot, missing some here and there. But I have tabulated the War Chiefs at 11-0. That's one thing that I can just about tell you, for certain here, is that the War Chiefs are undefeated. I have not heard of them losing a game or even really having been close to losing a game yet this year. They are the best team in this league until it is proven that they are not, and they're the team to beat right now in this league. I know they had a battle against Tonawanda last night. Unless the Braves knocked them off in that game, I do have the War Chiefs as undefeated. Looking at some other numbers here, Tuscarora, I do have the Junior Tomahawks at 7-3. Once again, that was one of the ones where a game got posted. Tuscarora was listed as 6-4 in one place, 6-3 in another, and now eventually 7-3. So not 100% sure, but I want to say 7-3, and the War Chiefs the Tomahawks were the only loss to the War Chiefs on the season, and I believe they should only be playing them 3 times, given that they'll play 12 games in the year, play 4 other teams 3 times apiece. That gets you your 12. So don't think they would have lost to them 4 times, but maybe they did end up playing a 4th time, with Six Nations dropping out and Tyndonega at the start of the year. Things have been, getting shuffled all over the place for the juniors this year. But, I have the Junior Tomahawks at 7-3, and they could be poised to make their first ever championship appearance. That would be very exciting for the Junior Tomahawks and everything that I know Randy Chrysler is trying to build down there with that program and that organization. If they can make their first ever championship appearance, it's going to be a tough road ahead, as they're going to have to take on a very talented Tonawanda Junior Braves team. I have them at 3-7. That is, without knowing the result of the game last night. I do apologize for not having that one in front of me, but I think the Junior Braves are better than their record says they are. I think there's a lot of talent on the team. They've missed some pieces throughout the year for one reason or another, but I think that there's a lot of talent on that Junior Braves team, and they could pull the upset. That's another program that is in its infancy that's looking to make their first ever First Nations League championship appearance and potentially come away with a championship. You just never know. But baby steps right now. If they can get to the finals here and for the Junior Braves, I believe only their 3rd ever total season. If they can do that, that's a huge step in the right direction for the Junior Braves, not only as a team this year, but as an organization into the future. And yeah, 3rd season, as I pull out my sheet, get it in front of me, 0-12 the program was in 2022, took a year off in 2023. We're back at it, 3-7 with a 5th place finish last year. So the Junior Braves, I already have them at 3-7. They still, I believe, have a few games left to play. So if they can just pick up at least one more win, if that record is accurate, that shows the progress that they are making, just from last year to this year. And then, just to make the point on the Junior Tomahawks as well, I have them at 7-3. They were 5-5 last year, so they're really making progress as well. 4-8 in 23, and then 4-7-1 for Tuscarora back in 2022. Each of those years a 3rd place finish. So Tuscarora going to finish as high as they've ever finished in the First Nations League standings. They should be locked into 2nd place. So definitely you can see the progress being made, by the Junior Tomahawks. It's apparent here for the Junior Braves as well, and that's looking like it's going to be the first round postseason matchup for the First Nations Junior B Lacrosse League, as we got to see a bit of a preview of it not too long ago when Tuscarora hosted Tonawanda in a very entertaining game at Cornerstone Arena. I got to be there for it. If you missed it, check it out on Blue Squatch. It should be there under the live section if you want to go back and rewatch that one. It was an entertaining one, as the final score was a 10-8 Tuscarora Tomahawks win. They did come from behind in that game, as it felt like they were down for quite a bit. Tonawanda had, a bit more control than maybe Tuscarora would have liked them to have had, but the Tomahawks, never say die attitude, did not give up on the game, stuck with it, and they found themselves being rewarded for it with a victory, as I believe that was their 7th win of the season. And that's a big one for the Junior Tomahawks, as they blew out Tuscarora a bit earlier in the season, or excuse me, Tonawanda a bit earlier in the season. As I take a look at it, 21-10 was the score when those two teams matched up at Cornerstone for the first time, and then the return matchup down at Logan Field was definitely a lot closer, 13-10, but still a Tomahawks win, and Tuscarora able to sweep the season series from the Tonawanda Braves with the final win 10-8. So you can tell those games got a lot closer, went from a blowout of epic proportions to a 3-goal game, which Tuscarora had to come from behind in, and then a 2-goal game in which Tuscarora had to come from behind in. So that gap between second and third has really closed, even with Six Nations dropping out. Tonawanda and Tuscarora look very close and look very evenly matched, as I know the Junior Braves, made some additions to the squad. Ace Abrams was one that, stood out to me a lot in their most recent game. I thought he played particularly well for the Junior Braves, as I got to pull up my rosters here. John Buck coming in as a backup goalie, I think will help Jackson Bob Pragle a lot, just to take the load off his shoulders, as the Junior Braves didn't even have a backup for most of this season. So if anything were to have happened to J Bob during the regular season, they would have been in a tough spot. But got John Buck in there now to back up Jackson Bob Pragle, and that'll help out the Junior Braves, especially if they can win the championship and head to the Founders Cup. You need goaltending depth in tournaments like that. Looking as well, Adam Kyler, a big addition coming over from Tuscarora to Tonawanda, now on the other side of that rivalry. I'm excited to see how that plays out into the playoffs, as always a big rivalry there, Tonawanda, Tuscarora, as I'm sure his former teammates for the Tomahawks will let him know that he's on the other side of that rivalry now. But looking at Tuscarora, they loaded up too. I mean, how about going out and picking up Ryan Vall, Colton Noah, Nick Thomas? I mean, Colton Noah's spent some time with the Wallaceburg Red Devils. He had 39 points with them in the OJBLL this season. I mean, Brandon Taylor as well. He played a couple games with the Toronto Beaches, or a game, I should say, with the Beaches, picked up a pair of goals. Ryan Vall, a commit to Lees McRae, has done some big things down in Pennsylvania in the PA lacrosse scene. So all of those guys, big additions. Nick Thomas as well. And then Andrew Timon, a addition for the Junior Tomahawks as well, coming over from the War Chiefs. That's a big thing, in my opinion, for Tuscarora, picking up a guy like Andrew Timon, because you made the War Chiefs a tad bit weaker, and your team got a bit stronger. So that can help them try and close the gap to the War Chiefs a bit, as up at the top. Timon, somebody I like his game a lot, a commit to Mercyhurst. He's going to head down to the NEC and spend some time with the Lakers, as he's out of Cathedral Prep High School. He's somebody that I think's a big add on the right ED side for Tuscarora, but that's going to be, I think, a very entertaining series between those two teams, splitting hairs once again. Talking about the differences. I think as I said, Tonawanda's record much better than they're much better than their record shows, but at the end of the day, got to prove it, as one of them will have to advance to the finals. And then rounding out the league, Allegheny sits at, I have them at 1-9, with their lone win coming against the Tonawanda Junior Braves earlier in the season, as I believe they won on the road at Logan Field as well. Got a double check here. Yes, they did. 13-11 back on June 1. The Junior Arrows got their lone win of the year. At least I have them as their lone win. Let me just preface that, as their lone win of the season over the Tonawanda Junior Braves. And, you know, to me, Allegheny doesn't look like a one-win team. They've had a lot of moving pieces there. Another program in its infancy like Tonawanda, still growing and developing. But, you know, there's definitely talent there. I mean, you know, Kelvin George, one of the first guys to come to mind. I've really, you know, loved watching him play and loved his game in the few times I've seen him this year, as I dig through my massive pile of papers to try and find a roster for the Allegheny Junior Arrows here. It is coming up. There it is. We got it. As I mean, oh yes, how can I forget Colin Duncan? He had a big game against Tuscarora, 4 goals. I have him down with in that game. Was a bit quiet in the game against Tonawanda, but still somebody that is, you know, uber talented and can, you know, try and help lead that team. I mean, Delson Tallchief, somebody else I liked watching as well. Brendan John, and then Mogi Buffalo starting in between the pipes. There's building blocks there for the Junior Arrows for sure, but it's just been a rough start for them at the moment. But they're going to have a tough task ahead of them, as they're going to have to take on the Seneca War Chiefs in all likelihood in the first round. It's going to be tough for any team to take down the War Chiefs, but maybe, just maybe, Allegheny can get her done. We will see. As I will take another water break here. Who knows in that series, but First Nations League right now is going to be exciting, as we will wind down here on Inside the World of Box Lacrosse. Just want to thank you all so very much for joining me here this morning. I have loved it, and, you know, I've loved every minute of it throughout this season, but, you know, kind of cool flying solo here today, but, you know, I miss Greg a lot. We need him back on here, so we will hopefully get him back on here next week. But most importantly, let's say thank you to CB's Cannabis Club. Thank you so very much for your support of Blue Squatch Productions and for your support of Inside the World of Box Lacrosse. Without your support, these streams and these shows would not be possible. Thank you so very much to CB's. And, of course, one more time, just want to throw up that graphic and make sure we honor the life and legacy of Carlin Woody Seneca, as we say so long for now. And we check the chat one more time. Thank you, Utica Yeti, so very much for the support. And, of course, thank you so much, The Crafty Beach. I love the support. Thank you all so very much for watching and for your support here of Blue Squatch Productions and Inside the World of Box Lacrosse.